$440 million evaporates in exactly 45 minutes. That is enough cash to buy 3 commercial airliners, completely vaporized in the time it takes to eat lunch. The victim was Knight Capital. They were a Wall Street titan, handling billions in daily trade volume. No external force took them down. They destroyed themselves from within. Their business relied on high-frequency algorithmic trading. Their computers executed millions of microtransactions, buying and selling fractions of cents at speeds completely invisible to human perception. In August 2012, Knight Capital prepared a massive update to their software. They deployed the new code on a Wednesday morning, right as the market opened. Knight Capital's destruction was a purely internal event, an algorithmic hemorrhage triggered by the very technology they deployed. As the deployment went live, panic consumed the trading floor. The new algorithm immediately went rogue, flooding the market with millions of erratic orders. The engineering teams scrambled to issue digital kill commands. They tried to terminate the trading logic remotely, but the system ignored their inputs and kept firing orders. The catastrophe had an exact burn rate. Roughly $10 million disappeared every single minute the system remained online. Stripped of software control, the engineers resorted to a brutal, physical solution. They sprinted into the data centers and manually yanked the physical network cables out of the servers. The legacy architecture of high-frequency trading prioritized infinite speed. It lacked the structural, verifiable failsafes required to halt execution when the system started destroying itself. To find the trigger, we have to leave the trading floor and look at the sterile architecture of the firm's data centers. Knight Capital's deployment architecture required the new high-frequency trading code to be copied evenly across an array of 8 primary servers. A technician, manually running the deployment over the weekend, successfully copied the new code to 7 of the servers. They forgot the 8th. At the opening bell, the system operated on asymmetrical instructions. The 8th server began receiving unrecognizable commands from the updated nodes. Trying to resolve the error, the 8th server searched for an alternate routing pathway. It found one, a dormant, obsolete pathway from 2003. Human error in manual deployment is a statistical certainty. The critical vulnerability was an architecture that allowed unverified, dead code pathways to remain accessible to live systems. This dormant pathway led to what developers call zombie code. It was a piece of testing software written 9 years earlier, abandoned on the servers and entirely forgotten. In 2003, its purpose was benign. It was a simulated stress testing tool designed to execute dummy trades to check the system's load limits. Because it was only built for simulations, the original engineers never programmed it with price-checking logic. It had no concept of losing money. This display shows live stock prices. Because the zombie code lacked any pricing limits, it initiated a catastrophic live market loop, blindly buying shares at the highest possible asking price and immediately selling them at the lowest possible bid, over and over again. Dead, unverified code left in a production environment operates like an invisible explosive. Without strict structural protocols mandating its removal, it will eventually execute. How does 9-year-old obsolete testing software survive on live production servers for almost a decade? Pre-2024 legacy software engineering and scholarly publishing operated heavily within a trust-based era. Ethical compliance in this era meant trusting the original engineer, or the academic researcher, to manually maintain and document their own operational environments. There was no mandatory third-party artifact disclosure. No external mechanism forced a physical audit of the codebase before a new deployment went live. This model breaks down at scale. Data centers and algorithmic systems grow far too sprawling for any single human to comprehend or accurately remember over a 9-year period. Writing cleaner code cannot prevent systemic disasters. The only mechanism that prevents execution errors is replacing passive human trust with ruthless, verifiable transparency. By 2026, a new set of cross-industry standards arrived to solve these systemic blind spots. This was a transition from a trust-based model to a verification-based model. This shift was led by the 2026 COPE Code of Conduct for Researchers and the ACM Open Science Policy for Computer Scientists. Both share a single core philosophy. Credibility must be continuously demonstrated through transparent, auditable processes. Under the 2026 Open Science Policy, developers must share their artifacts. They cannot hide behind a final executable. They must surrender datasets, models, and complete code histories. These rubrics actively scan for and reject undocumented logic paths. Unverified artifacts are blocked. This creates a unified ethical standard where the auditable trail required of a vaccine researcher at Cochrane now matches the requirements of a software engineer deploying high-stakes code. In 2026, transparency functions as a structural firewall against systemic failure. If we apply the rigid 2026 verification frameworks directly to the 2012 Knight Capital deployment, the outcome changes completely. Before the new trading code was ever allowed near the live servers, the team would be forced through a mandatory artifact disclosure phase. A 2026 peer review audit would map the server architecture and immediately expose the undocumented 9-year-old zombie code hiding in the system. The deployment pipeline would trigger a hard lock. The system would refuse to push the new upgrade until the unverified artifact was totally purged. Rigorous preventative transparency might cost an engineering team 3 days of bureaucratic auditing, but it prevents the incineration of $500 million in 45 minutes. Blind trust in an unverified algorithm carries a $440 million price tag. In an age of hyper-speed digital execution, absolute verifiable transparency is the only way institutions survive.
Brass teeth grinding on the parchment floor, steam in the valves kicking down the door, cold neon light on a blueprint page, ink in the pipes building up the rage, metal breath in